Imagine having a system that lets you gamble for reality itself. One draw and a luxury mansion appears out of thin air. One click, and I own the most expensive skyline in the city. That is the secret power I carry in my pocket. I am not just rich, I am playing with cheat codes. It is not just about the gold and the marble floors. And my system provides items that defy every law of nature. Pills that can restore a man's vitality and pride. Assets that can crash a market or build an empire. Most people work a lifetime for a fraction of my luck. I get the world's greatest treasures in a single second. The real thrill is seeing the shock on their faces when they realize that everything they crave belongs to me. I have already left the dust of my old life behind. I have navigated the treacherous waters of the high society, from dodging fake landlords to crushing arrogant social climbers. I have built a reputation as a ghost in the machine. The elite of Tianhai tried to look down on me. They thought I was just another naive rich kid. They were dead wrong about who I really am. Every encounter has been a lesson in absolute power. I've learned that money is the only language they speak, and I happen to be the loudest voice in the room. Now I am stepping into my new crown jewel of real estate. The Yingling building is a palace of glass and authority. Every person walking through those doors is now my subject. I met the manager's daughter and a desperate man named Chen Wu. A single pill for my system could change his life forever. Loyalty is a powerful currency, and I know how to buy it. Then there is Tang Luohuan and her billion-yuan crisis. She is fighting a losing battle against the arrogant Zhao Dongyi. She has no idea that I can end the conflict in seconds. Watching a titan like Zhao turn into a whimpering puppy was satisfying. He did not just change the contract, he begged for my favor. That is how the game is played when you hold all the cards. But a real shock was waiting for me in my recruitment emails. An MIT MBA applying to be my humble housekeeper. Ning Xinan, you have no idea who you are working for now. My empire is growing and the players are getting more interesting. I am ready to see just how far this power can go. Let us dive into the details of how I took over. I stepped into the Yingling building and was immediately hit by the sheer luxury of the lobby. Everything from the French Riviera decor to the imported marbles screamed high class and expensive. Massive floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the space with sunlight, making the entire place feel warm and inviting. Even the staff and security were polished and professional, perfectly fitting the image of low-key luxury. I couldn't help but smile as I looked around. I really loved the vibe, and it was officially mine. The security guards approached me with a level of respect that showed Chen Wu had already prepped them. They escorted me toward the elevators, treating me with the kind of deference reserved for a true VIP. As the elevator doors were closing, a girl rushed in, clutching a box tightly in her arms. She was cute, with braids and a sweet smile, giving off a very pure girl-next-door energy. We started chatting, and she mentioned she was heading to the 17th floor just like I was. When I told her I was going to work, she excitedly welcomed me as a future colleague. She introduced herself as Jiang Chen and warned me not to provoke the boss, a man she called the old man. It turns out the old man was actually her father, Chen Wu, the general manager of the property. She spent the rest of the ride telling me all about her father's strict and demanding management style. When the doors opened on the 17th floor, I saw a sight that made Jiang Chen freeze in her tracks. Chen Wu and several other employees were standing in a line, waiting to welcome the new owner. The atmosphere shifted instantly as Chen Wu bowed respectfully and welcomed me as President Jiang. Jiang Chen looked completely stunned, realizing the guy she was just chatting with was actually the big boss. Her father scolded her for her lack of professionalism and made her give me a formal 90-degree bow. I just smiled and nodded, finding her reaction and the sudden shift in dynamics quite amusing. Once inside the office, Chen Wu introduced me to Ge Jingming, the head of Wanzi Cosmetics. Ge was a prominent figure in the business world, but he was clearly eager to impress me. I kept my expression calm and indifferent, which I could tell only increased his respect for me. Chen Wu presented the qualification documents to ensure Wanzi Cosmetics met the building's strict leasing standards. I took a sip of my coffee and glanced through the files, seeing that everything was in order. Trusting Chen Wu's diligence, I handed the documents back and told him to handle the remaining details. After signing the lease with Chen Wu, we didn't rush off. We sat down for tea and some friendly conversation. I couldn't help but ask if Jiang Chen was really his daughter. She is so cute while he looks quite rugged. Chen Wu sighed, explaining that she takes after her mother. Sadly, his wife had passed away many years ago. To honor her memory, he gave his daughter her mother's surname. She was mostly raised by her aunt during those years. He felt a deep sense of guilt, knowing his sister-in-law sacrificed her own youth and happiness to help him. When I asked why he hadn't given the aunt a proper place in his life, Chen Wu's expression turned bitter. It turns out he had a private struggle, a medical issue in his personal life that no doctor could seem to cure. That is when I saw my opportunity. I remembered the rejuvenation pill I had acquired from the system. I pulled out the box and played it up, claiming it was a rare, secret recipe passed down through my family. I told them it was a legendary treasure, no longer sold to the public and reserved only for those I trusted. Chen Wu was mesmerized, and Jingming looked like he wanted to steal a piece of the pill for himself. I handed the pill to Chen Wu. If this system-made medicine works, he will be indebted to me for life. Once the excitement settled, we moved to the financials. The total rent for the quarter was 2 million yuan. I provided my bank card, and Chen Wu hurried off to the finance department to arrange the transfer. While waiting, I scanned the tenant list and froze. The Orange Light Group is actually based in the Yinglan building. I discovered that the Orange Light Group was actually a tenant in my own Yinglan building. That meant Tang Luohuan and her team were working right downstairs. I couldn't resist the urge to pay them a visit. Meanwhile, on the 9th floor, Tang Luohuan was locked in a tense meeting with Zhao Dongyi from the Zhao Group. From the outside, Zhao seemed friendly, but he was playing a game of procrastination to wear her down. I knew Zhao's history. He had offended me before, causing his family heavy losses and earning him a brutal scolding. Desperate to redeem himself in his father's eyes, Zhao decided to prey on Tang Luohuan's current business needs. He presented a contract that was practically a robbery, demanding full payment up front for equipment delivered in batches. He even hiked the cost by 30%. It was a blatant attempt to squeeze every penny out of her. Tang Luohuan was furious, her patience wearing thin, but the equipment was vital for her company's long-term survival. Seeing her desperation, Zhao played hard to get, threatening to walk away entirely to force her hand. In the end, she had no choice but to compromise. She signed the deal, though it left her feeling humiliated. As Zhao walked out of the office, he felt like the king of the world, proud of his manipulation. Tang Luohuan was left seething, swearing that she would get her revenge on that bastard one day. That was exactly when I strolled into the lobby. The receptionist told me Tang was still busy with guests. I was about to leave when Zhao Dongyi spotted me. His arrogant expression vanished instantly. He rushed toward me, bowing and scraping like a frightened puppy, a complete reversal from the man who just bullied Tang. He knew exactly who I was, the owner of Golden Shield Security and the Zijin Hotel. He knew my reach. Watching this, Tang Luohuan and her assistant were stunned. They couldn't believe this predator was suddenly acting like a servant. I stood there calmly, as Tang Luohuan and Shen Qiulan walked over, noticing how Zhao Zhongyi looked at me with sheer terror. When Tang asked if we knew each other, I smiled and played dumb, asking Zhao if he remembered me. The man was practically shaking, acting like a mouse meeting a cat, terrified that I might ruin him right there. Then, Shen Qiulan mentioned that Tang and I were close neighbors who had even shared dinner at my house recently. I watched the color drain from Zhao's face as he realized my connection to Tang was much deeper than he thought. He likely assumed Tang was my woman and that I had come here specifically to protect her business interests. Panicking, Zhao suddenly ripped up the predatory contract he had just forced her to sign, calling it completely unreasonable. He insisted we use Tang's original terms instead, desperate to fix any mistake that might have offended me. He even offered to let me review the contract before signing, treating me with more respect than his own employees. Tang was completely stunned by the sudden reversal, but she quickly seized the opportunity to sign the fairer deal. In just 10 minutes, the power dynamic shifted entirely, saving Tang's company hundreds of millions of dollars because of me. Before leaving, Zhao practically begged for a dinner meeting with his father, hoping to curry favor with my family. He even asked for my permission to leave the room, acting more like a servant than a powerful businessman. As he scurried away, I noticed the lingering curiosity in Tang's eyes. She still has no idea who I really am. I sat in the chairman's office, savoring a cup of tea while Tang Luohuan watched me with genuine curiosity. With just a few casual words, I had terrified Zhao Dongyi into changing the contract and giving up a massive profit. Tang Luohuan told me that my intervention saved her at least 1 billion yuan, plus other benefits that were hard to measure. 1 billion is a staggering amount, but I kept my expression calm. I didn't let the number faze me. When she asked how she could thank me, I decided to have a little fun and suggested she pay with flesh. She blushed and looked angry, but the tension was playful. I eventually told her to just owe me a favor. Since I'm now worth tens of billions, money is no longer the goal. I prefer the leverage of a future favor. Before I left, she reminded me about a return dinner invitation. I told her to come to my house tomorrow at noon. After leaving the building, Wu Pei called to update me on the fake landlord from Splendid Flower City. The police uncovered a mountain of crimes, and the man was sentenced to 3 years in prison for his greed. It was a life-altering blow for him, but for me, it was just a small episode that I quickly forgot. Once back in my car, I checked my recruitment site and found over 99 new applications for my housekeeper position. While browsing, one resume stood out. Ning Shinan, a graduate of Huaqing University with an MBA from MIT. I couldn't help but laugh. Why would someone with those elite credentials apply to be a simple housekeeper? She had no idea that I was the employer. I wondered what her expression would be when we finally meet. I sent her an interview invitation for my villa, eager to see how this unfolds. On the other side, Ning Shinan was shocked. She felt her pride as an academic was insulted by the role. However, her friend pointed out the monthly salary of 100,000 yuan, which was far higher than most jobs. Between being blacklisted by the Zhao Group and having an empty wallet, she was practically out of options. Despite her hesitation, the money was too tempting. She reluctantly agreed to attend the interview tomorrow. It was 4 in the afternoon when Ning Shinan arrived at my home, the Lake Heart Villa, right on time. She seemed quite anxious, even questioning my security guards about whether I lived alone before she dared to enter. I waited for her in the living room, calmly brewing tea and letting the fragrance fill the air as she walked in. The moment she saw me, she was completely shocked. She never imagined that the mysterious Mr. Jiang was actually me. I could tell she felt embarrassed, especially since she had previously complained to me about her financial difficulties. I played along, maintaining a professional demeanor while hiding a smirk as I reviewed her incredibly impressive resume. With a degree from Huaqing University and an MBA from MIT, she was far overqualified for a housekeeping position. I questioned why she would want such a job, and she awkwardly claimed that she enjoyed the management aspect of it. Despite the awkwardness, she was determined to be professional, treating the encounter like a serious corporate interview. I explained the duties, keeping the villa clean, managing the pool, and occasionally handling some of my company's affairs. However, I made one thing very clear. I required her to be on call 24 hours a day. When she questioned the high salary, I reminded her that the workload across my various companies could be overwhelming. Ning Shinan was eager to please, even offering to handle the cooking and laundry herself to maintain my privacy. Then came the real shock. I informed her that to meet the 24-hour requirement, she would have to move in. She was clearly flustered by the idea of living with me, but the allure of the job was too strong. We signed the contract, committing her to the role for 3 years with a penalty she could never afford to pay. As I stretched, I noticed her glancing away shyly, seemingly affected by the sight of my physique. I handed her the keys to a Rolls-Royce and told her to go home and pack her belongings immediately. I left her there, dazed and blushing, as I headed to the gym to finish my workout. Now that she is officially my housekeeper, I wonder how she will handle living under the same roof as me. Ning Shinan returned to the villa and found me still working out in the gym, finishing my routine. When I stepped out shirtless, I noticed her blush and shyly look away from my physique. She is an excellent housekeeper, always maintaining a professional distance by addressing me as Mr. Jiang. I appreciated her boundaries, but tonight, I decided to change the plan for dinner. I told her we were going out, surprising her since she expected to be the one cooking. It was her birthday, a detail I had spotted on her resume, and I wanted to celebrate it. We went to Fastman's, a high-end restaurant with a luxury atmosphere and a breathtaking sea view. I ordered half the menu, from Wagyu to suckling pig, leaving the receptionist completely shocked. Shinan was worried we could not finish it all, which led to some playful banter about our appetites. I complimented her figure, and for a moment, she seemed truly happy and relaxed in my company. But that peace was shattered by a sharp voice. Tang Lu had arrived with Zhao Minghong. Tang Lu was full of resentment, immediately starting to mock Shinan for her current situation. She tried to belittle her, claiming her life had downgraded from luxury to roadside stalls. Shinan tried to defend herself, but Tang Lu and Zhao Minghong were too arrogant to listen. Zhao Minghong went even further, coldly suggesting that Shinan should just leave the city of Tianhai entirely. Seeing tears of grievance well up in Shinan's eyes made my blood boil. I stood up and approached them, putting on a smile as I greeted the prestigious boss Zhao. Before he could even respond, I grabbed his neck and pinched his chin with crushing force. I told him we needed to have a private chat and dragged him forcefully toward the bathroom. Tang Lu actually thought I was being respectful to him, completely unaware of the pain he was in. I dragged Zhao Minghong into the bathroom and threw him in, leaving him completely stunned by my sudden aggression. He tried to play the big shot, threatening me with the Zhao Group's influence and claiming he could ruin me. I just smiled. It seemed he had forgotten the pain of his recent business failures far too quickly. I reminded him about the revoked Zijin hotel contract and the suppressed prices with the Orange Light Group. The color drained from his face as he realized I knew secrets that should have stayed buried. When I finally revealed that I was Jiang Chen, he collapsed against the wall, terrified by the revelation. Meanwhile, back in the restaurant, Tang Lu was still acting like she owned the place, mocking Ning Xinan. Xinan remained silent, clenching her fists because she didn't want to bring any more trouble onto me. As we walked back, Tang Lu tried to brag about her victory, thinking Zhao Minghong was still on her side. She didn't realize how terrified Zhao had become. One loud slap sent her flying across the dining room. The sound echoed through the restaurant. Zhao was desperate to show me his loyalty by crushing her. I just sat there calmly cutting my steak, watching the chaos unfold with a slight, satisfied smile. Suddenly, the arrogant Zhao Minghong was bowing and scraping, begging Ning Xinan for her forgiveness. He promised a public apology and immediate compensation, a complete reversal from his usual cold and defiant nature. He even forced Tang Lu to apologize, threatening to send her abroad so she would never bother Xinan again. Xinan didn't forgive them, but she accepted the distance. That was all she really wanted from them. Zhao tried to play it off as a friendly gesture toward me, hoping to stay in my good graces. I shook his hand, noting how the strong only respect those even stronger than themselves. It is the law of the jungle. Once he left, Xinan looked at me with wide eyes, wondering who I actually was to have such power. I jokingly called myself her master, which earned me a playful and flirtatious slap on the arm. Then her phone buzzed. Zhao had transferred 500 million to her account as a massive compensation payment. She was panicked by the amount, so I suggested she keep 200 million and use the rest as work funds. I asked if she still wanted to be my housekeeper with all that money, and she insisted she would. To top it off, the manager brought out a supreme black card and a bottle of wine worth 700 million, a gift from Zhao Minghong. He was certainly more experienced than his son at playing the game of power. The next day began like any other, and I headed to my room to start my daily lottery draw. To my surprise, I landed a god-level cooking skill, making me twice as capable as the world's top chefs. At first, I wondered if being a master chef really matched my refined and elegant temperament, but then I remembered. Tang Luohuan was coming over for a meal today, so this sudden gift felt like a perfect coincidence. I wrote up a list of high-end ingredients and handed it to Ning Xinan, my capable housekeeper. She was confused when I told her I would be handling the cooking myself, as she didn't expect it. I just gave her a small smile. After activating the skill, I was actually eager to show off a bit. Meanwhile, over at the third villa, Tang Luohuan was attempting to prepare a special chicken soup for me. She used the finest ingredients, from New Zealand chickens to Tian Shan snow lotus, but the result was a pitch-black liquid. Her assistant, Shen Yulin, looked at the pot in horror, thinking it looked more like cement than actual food. Poor Yulin was forced to taste the concoction and had to lie through her teeth just to stay in favor. Despite the disaster, Tang Luohuan proudly packed the soup in a thermos and headed over to my place. When she arrived, she was surprised to find Ning Xinan opening the door, recognizing her as a former corporate star. Tang was baffled that a woman of Ning's caliber was working as a housekeeper, but she kept her curiosity hidden. I walked into the room wearing a bare apron and holding a spatula, looking far less intimidating than usual. Tang Luohuan teased me for cooking myself, but the moment we entered the dining room, the aroma hit her. I had prepared a feast featuring the best of the 8 major cuisines, from Kung Pao chicken to squirrel mandarin fish. Tang couldn't believe her eyes. The presentation and scent were far beyond anything she had experienced in luxury restaurants. We sat down to eat, and within half an hour, Tang was completely overwhelmed by the sheer quality of the meal. She admitted it was the best Chinese food she had ever tasted, leaving her feeling warm and deeply satisfied. Things were peaceful at home, but Ning Xinan seemed a bit depressed. She felt her cooking was average compared to my skills. She suggested hiring a professional chef, but I wasn't having it. I told her not to be lazy or her salary would suffer. While Ning is decent, my god-level cooking makes anyone look amateur. Still, I don't want to spend every single day in the kitchen. Tang Luohuan noticed the dynamic and teased me about my ability to convince someone like Miss Ning to be my housekeeper. I joked that it was simply the charm of my personality, which earned me a playful but annoyed look from her. Then I noticed the thermos Tang had brought. She had spent the entire morning boiling chicken soup specifically for me. As soon as she opened it, a pungent, medicinal smell filled the air. The soup looked more like mud than food. I asked if she had even tasted it. She claimed Aunt Lan had tried it and said it was delicious. I felt a momentary pang of pity for Aunt Lan. I gently suggested that being a genius CEO doesn't make you a chef. Offended, Tang took a large gulp to prove me wrong. Her expression changed instantly, and she began to shake. It wasn't even close to soup. She ended up spitting it right back into the bowl in total disgust. I offered to let her learn to cook at my place, but I mentioned that Ning would be the one teaching her. I could see her mood sink. A strange, silent tension began to grow between Tang and Ning right in front of me. Suddenly, Tang tried to recruit Ning to her company, offering a higher salary and better resources just to get her away. I realized then that this wasn't about talent or business. Tang Luohuan was simply feeling jealous. Ning handled it with grace. She refused the offer, stating that no one was more suited to be my housekeeper than her. She even teased Tang about her worries, leaving the usually composed director completely flustered and embarrassed. Tang rushed out of the house in a panic. I watched her leave, shivering at the intensity of this gunpowder-free war. Once home, Tang struggled with her feelings, wondering if she had actually fallen for me after only a few days. As a powerful entrepreneur and independent woman, she was shocked that her heart could be shaken so easily. Her reflection was interrupted by Aunt Lan, who was clutching her stomach in agony after tasting that terrible soup. But the mood shifted when news arrived that a man named Qian Qianyi had entered Tianhai, likely searching for her. Tang's face turned gloomy. She immediately ordered her security to ensure he never appeared in her sight again. I didn't really want to spend my evening shopping, but Ning Shinan begged me until I finally gave in. We hit the Chanel flagship store, where I decided to upgrade her wardrobe since she is my housekeeper now. At first, she was hesitant to spend the money, but her attitude shifted the moment I offered to pay. She stepped out of the fitting room in a stunning Chanel dress, and I have to admit, she looked incredible. With her slender waist and long legs, she was a natural clothes hanger, so I bought everything she tried on. After paying, I stepped away to the restroom to freshen up, not expecting to run into anyone I knew. As I was washing my hands, a guy recognized me and called out. It was Yang Feng, an old high school classmate. He was shocked by how much I had changed, commenting on my improved physique and the confidence I now carried. We had not seen each other in 4 years, and it felt nostalgic to catch up in a mall bathroom. Yang Feng asked if I had come into money, and I simply told him it was a windfall, keeping details vague. Back in high school, I was a top student, but life took a sharp turn during the college entrance exams. A severe fever on the day of the test ruined my performance, landing me in an ordinary college instead. The ridicule from others during that time left a deep scar, but seeing Yang Feng's surprise now felt rewarding. Yang Feng mentioned he was working at a game company and invited me to a high school reunion happening tomorrow. I did not hesitate to accept. I wanted to see how my former classmates would react to the new me. We exchanged WeChat contacts, and just as we finished, a frantic Ning Shinan came running toward us, looking worried. When I introduced her, Yang Feng immediately assumed she was my girlfriend, calling her sister-in-law with a mischievous grin. Ning Shinan turned bright red, stuttering through a denial, though she seemed more flustered than actually upset. Yang Feng teased me for being a straight man, but then he accidentally mentioned a name from my past, Shu Shan. Shu Shan was my ex-girlfriend, a name that used to be a taboo, but I found I no longer cared. After Yang Feng left, I casually explained to Ning Shinan that Shu Shan was just a part of my past. I noticed a little spark of pride in her eyes, as if she was happy to be the one here. With a light flick to her forehead to snap her out of her daydream, we headed home together. I was completely drained after spending the entire night shopping with Ning Xinyan. I honestly don't know why women love it so much. When we finally got home, I found her fast asleep on the sofa. She looked so peaceful that I couldn't just leave her there. I carefully picked her up and carried her to her bedroom. Looking at her, I realized she is truly stunning, just a bit clumsy. Once it hit midnight, it was time for my daily system draws. I was hoping for something big to keep things interesting. The first draw gave me a Mercedes-Benz Maybach S. It is a great car, but compared to my others, it is just a shopping cart. Then came the real prize, full ownership of the Lavender Island Resort. This was perfect timing since my meeting is there tomorrow. The next morning, Ning Shinan woke up late and panicked, thinking she had failed her duties as my housekeeper by not cooking. She rushed to the kitchen only to find I had already prepared a rich breakfast. I love teasing her when she is flustered. We have grown closer lately. She is obedient and sweet, and I have started seeing her more as a friend than an employee. To brighten her day, I gave her the keys to the Maybach S. Seeing her dance with joy actually felt pretty good. We headed to Lavender Island, a breathtaking spot surrounded by water and fields of purple flowers. It is incredibly private and serene. As we approached the entrance, a car pulled up. It was Jiang Chen, and he immediately started acting superior and arrogant. He mocked me for not having a car parked nearby, completely unaware that I actually own the entire resort he is visiting. I did not bother explaining the situation. I just watched him drive away and told Ning Xinan that he was just a fool. I was making my way toward the Lavender Resort, a place of elegant wooden villas and a very specific kind of atmosphere. Inside, a group of my former classmates had gathered, and the air was thick with blatant, desperate flattery. At the center of it all was Wang Wendang, who was basking in the praise as if he were royalty. Beside him sat Xu Shan, the girl who once chased me in high school but abandoned me the moment I struggled. Now, they played the part of the perfect couple, with Wang showcasing his wealth and his supposed consideration for her. Most people went along with the act for the sake of networking, but my friend Yang Feng felt nothing but contempt. Su Jingyi was there too. She had only come to see me, and she was ready to leave when she thought I wouldn't show. The mood shifted when Zheng Jiqiang burst into the room, announcing that he had spotted me on the way to the island. Suddenly, the conversation turned toward me. The room grew quiet as everyone recalled my time as the top student in school. They began to mock my current situation, laughing about how I was still taking the bus to get around. Xu Shan felt a surge of relief, convinced that her choice to leave me had been the right one for her future. The girls remembered my looks, but they agreed that handsomeness is useless if you have no money or background. Then Zhiqiang mentioned the girl accompanying me, describing her as absolutely stunning in both looks and figure. Wang Wendang scoffed at this, wondering how a broke guy like me could possibly afford to date someone so beautiful. As they finished tearing me down, they pivoted back to praising Wang's new Porsche parked outside the resort. They were so caught up in their own little world of status and luxury, completely unaware of who I have become. I arrived at the Lavender Island Resort to find the staff in a state of complete panic. They had just learned that the resort had a new owner and they feared for their jobs. As I walked into the conference room, I could feel their anxiety and their desperate need for stability. Instead of the typical corporate purge, I simply told them to go back to work and enjoy their day. The relief on their faces was immediate. It was a small gesture, but it earned me their loyalty. I stayed behind with Zhou Da, the general manager, to get a detailed report on the resort's operations. The numbers were fantastic. The resort brings in about 18 million in annual profit with very little effort. Having Ning Xinan review the financial reports ensured that everything was transparent and handled with professional integrity. Zhou Da realized I had a professional financial eye on the business, but since he was honest, we bonded. Satisfied with the healthy state of my new investment, I decided to head over to meet some friends. In one of the exquisite wooden villas, a group of my former high school classmates were enjoying a feast. Wang Wendong was leading the group, pretending to be a regular visitor to impress everyone, especially Su Jingyi. He played the part of the successful alumnus perfectly, making the other students look up to him in awe. When I finally entered the villa, the entire mood of the room shifted in a heartbeat. Zheng Jiqiang rushed over with a fake enthusiasm, pulling me into the group while the girls stared in surprise. It seemed my appearance had changed enough since high school to leave them completely breathless and captivated. Only Yang Feng greeted me with genuine warmth, giving me a hug that felt like a real friendship. I looked around at the familiar yet different faces, feeling the nostalgic pull of our shared youth. As I took my seat, I felt the power dynamic shift. I smiled and told them it had been a long time. I stepped back into the room and the silence was heavy. Wang Wendong tried to play it off with a fake smile. He noticed Ning Xinan standing behind me and tried to poke fun, asking why I didn't let my girlfriend sit down. I stayed quiet, but Xinan spoke up clearly. She told them she wasn't my girlfriend, but my housekeeper. The room erupted in confusion. No one could understand why a woman as stunning as Xinan would be a housekeeper. Some wondered if I had suddenly become famous, while others just laughed, asking if I needed a housekeeper for a rental. They assumed Xinan was just saving my face, calling herself a housekeeper to hide that she was a rich girlfriend. Then Xu Shan spoke up. She claimed to have inside information that I had been living in a miserable rental since graduation. She described my supposed home as a dark, humid place where anyone would get sick. The others joined in the mockery. Xu Shan played the part of the concerned ex, offering to let Wendong find me a cheap place in Tianhai. The tension snapped when Su Jingyi threw her glass. She screamed at Xu Shan, reminding her how I had treated her. I was surprised to see the usually cold Jingyi defending me so fiercely, but it only fueled Xu Shan's anger. Xu Shan snapped back, accusing Jingyi of trying to be a third party now that I allegedly had a girlfriend. Just as things were boiling over, the door opened. Mr. Zhou, the general manager of the resort, walked in. Wang Wendong beamed, thinking the manager was there for him. He tried to brag about his connection to Mr. Zhou, but Zhou ignored him completely. He walked straight to me and bowed deeply, calling me boss. The room went dead silent. No one could believe it, but the general manager was treating me with absolute respect. Confused, Wendong tried to correct him, but Mr. Zhou revealed the truth. I had bought the entire resort in full. I was now the sole owner of a property worth hundreds of millions. The laughter stopped instantly. Xu Shan looked like she had seen a ghost. She realized she had just mocked a billionaire and lost a gold mine. Wendong's attitude flipped in a heartbeat. He suddenly claimed he always knew I was special and tried to suck up. I told them I do not hold grudges, but I asked Wendong to step outside for a private conversation. Once we were alone, I asked him about his relationship with Xu Shan. I wanted to know if he liked her. He laughed it off, admitting he never liked her. He confessed that he had always been in love with Su Jingyi. He admitted he manipulated Xu Shan into breaking up with me years ago just to get revenge for my past. He thought he was safe sharing this secret with me, but he didn't notice Shanan's phone in her hand. Every word of his confession was being broadcast through the loudspeakers back into the room for everyone to hear. I managed to get Wang Wendong to open up, but not in the way he had intended. He admitted he never loved Xu Shan and only saw her as a substitute for Su Jingyi. The worst part was his admission that he only married her for money and because she was pregnant. I knew the others in the villa were listening, and the tension was becoming absolutely palpable. Suddenly, the doors burst open and a furious Xu Shan delivered a slap that echoed through the air. She left him standing there in total shock, her heart broken and her dignity completely shattered. I walked up to Wang Wendong and gave him a light pat on the shoulder. I told him our debts were finally settled. I had played him perfectly, and he never saw it coming. As he collapsed in despair, I felt a sense of closure for everything he had put me through. Afterward, I took Yang Feng, Su Jingyi, and Ning Xinan to a private restaurant in the resort. They were dying to know the truth, so I finally admitted that this entire island resort belongs to me. Yang Feng was floored. Owning a private island in Tianhai is an absolutely astronomical investment. When they asked where I lived, I mentioned Huazhou Junting, where the real luxury resides. Su Jingyi seemed relieved to learn that Ning Xinan was my housekeeper and not my girlfriend. I could see a hint of jealousy in Ning Xinan's eyes, which I found almost amusing. Yang Feng praised my shady methods for tricking Wang Wendong into confessing his true colors. I just smiled. In a world this complicated, you need a few tricks to survive and thrive. After dinner, I invited them back to my place, leaving the chaos of the party behind us. As we prepared to leave, Wang Wendong was trying to regain his confidence with his Porsche. He and Zhang Jiqiang thought their luxury cars were the pinnacle of success and status. They were about to be humbled. My staff had already lined up to greet my arrival. 2 black Rolls-Royces were waiting for us, making their luxury cars look like mere toys. Ning Xinan noticed the Maybach and joked that it looked just like the grocery cart I gave her. I told her she could use the Phantom for groceries if she preferred, leaving Zhang Jiqiang completely crushed. I welcomed Yang Feng and Su Jingyi into my villa. Yang Feng was absolutely stunned by the sheer luxury of the place. While Yang Feng ran around amazed by the pool and my Pagani, Su Jingyi remained quiet, watching me with soft eyes. I could tell she was happy for my success, but there was a lingering sadness in her expression as we talked. Ha! When I asked how she had been, she finally let her emotions out, admitting how much she had worried about me. She was hurt that I had avoided her for 4 years and felt heartbroken when she heard I had another girlfriend. I tried to comfort her and explain that my previous relationship was over. I wanted her to know I was single now. Just as things got serious, Yang Feng crashed back into the room, still obsessing over how incredible my house was. To settle some old scores, Yang Feng posted photos of the villa in our old classmate group to shock the snobs. The group exploded instantly. Everyone was stunned by the scale of my wealth and my ownership of the Lavender Island Resort. Suddenly, classmates who had ignored me for years were flooding my private messages with fake politeness and sudden interest. I found the attention boring, and Su Jingyi agreed. To change the mood, I asked her to follow me upstairs. In my study, I showed her a copy of Reminiscence of Things Past, a book from our high school days. It reminded us of a sunny afternoon 6 years ago, when we shared the only copy available in the school library. That quiet moment was where the seeds of our first love were planted, a memory she had clearly cherished forever. Su Jingyi stepped closer, her breath fragrant. She asked me how much longer she was expected to wait for me. Looking at her, I remembered why I pushed her away. Back then, I was a poor orphan and felt completely unworthy. I'd even dated someone else just to make her give up on me, unaware of how much it had hurt her. But things are different now. I have the means and the confidence I lacked in high school. I no longer need to hesitate. I moved closer to her, and I could feel her heart racing. She softly closed her eyes, surrendering to the moment. Just as I was about to pull her close and seal the moment with a kiss, the study door suddenly swung open. I was just about to pull Su Jingyi closer when the study door swung open, completely killing the mood. It was Ning Xinan. She looked flustered and immediately turned away, apologizing for walking in on us. I couldn't help but laugh it off, handing her 300 taels of silver for the interruption. She told me that Miss Tang Luohuan was waiting downstairs with something important to discuss. After a quick, affectionate pat on Jingyi's head, I headed down to the living room. There she was, Tang Luohuan, looking stunningly professional in a white formal suit, sipping tea. I teased her about looking like she was on a blind date, which brought a soft blush to her cheeks. She revealed the reason for her visit. The cooperation with the Zhao group had officially begun. Zhao Minghong was hosting a dinner the night after tomorrow, and he specifically wanted me to attend. I knew the Zhao family, and I had some history, but I could feel their sincerity in this gesture. It made sense to keep them as allies for the future, so I agreed to join her. Just as Tang was about to leave, Su Jingyi walked down the stairs, and the temperature in the room dropped. Suddenly, I found myself caught between Tang Luohuan and Su Jingyi while Ning Xinan watched silently. The tension was suffocating. It felt like a battlefield, with me and Yang Feng as the only casualties. Tang Luohuan tried to be polite, but Su Jingyi reminded her that we were childhood best friends. Su didn't stop there. She subtly hinted that Tang Luohuan's reputation was far greater than her actual personality. Tang Luohuan shot back, assuming Su came from a modest background, but the truth was quite the opposite. It turns out Su Jingyi's family runs Shunchang trade, making them local royalty in Hangcheng, equal to the Tangs. The realization hit Tang Luohuan hard, and she looked at me with a mix of resentment and disbelief. After a polite but frosty farewell, Tang Luohuan departed, leaving a very grumpy Su Jingyi behind. I decided to tease her, asking if she was jealous, which only made her more flustered. I leaned in close, whispering a suggestion to pick up where we left off, which sent her running in embarrassment. Seeing her shy reaction always gives me a sense of accomplishment, no matter how cold she tries to be. Yang Feng joked that I was like a master, navigating between these women without getting a single scratch. But as we headed to the game room, I noticed Ning Xinan looking on with a bittersweet expression. It seems my life is getting more complicated by the second, with 3 different hearts potentially on the line. Yang Feng and I spent a few hours in the game hall of my villa, finally satisfying our childhood gaming cravings. While we relaxed, I asked him about his current job. That is when the frustration started pouring out of him. He works for Yuguang Game Company, but his manager is a nightmare who has been making his life miserable lately. Just because he did not give a festival gift, his boss tanked his KPIs and cut his salary by 30%. It was infuriating. Yang Feng's team had developed a promising martial arts game called Infinite Havoc, but the manager blocked it. He actually asked me if I wanted to start my own game company, offering to bring his entire production team along. I told him I would think about it, but honestly, the idea sparked something in me. I have always had a gaming dream. With billions in assets and nowhere to spend them, starting a studio seemed like the perfect way to use my wealth. I messaged my assistant Ning Xinan telling her to help me register a new game company the very next morning. When I woke up, it was time for my daily lucky draws. I held my breath and let them fly. The first golden light flashed, and I nearly choked on my fruit. I had just won 20 billion in cash. I felt like I was on a roll, so I went for the second draw. The result left me completely stunned. I had just acquired 70% of the shares of Yuguang Games, the exact company where Yang Feng was suffering. I burst out laughing. Why bother registering a new company when I now own the one that was mistreating my friend? I told Ning Xinan to cancel the registration. We were heading straight to the Science and Technology Park instead. As we stood before the massive Yuguang building, Ning Xinan asked if I was dating someone who worked there. I just smiled and told her the truth. I was not visiting anyone. I was the boss of the entire company. She was speechless. The company's market value was hundreds of billions, and I had just acquired it in an instant. Inside, the front desk immediately alerted the president's office. The news of a mysterious new owner had already spread. Secretary Lu Li greeted me with a deep bow, explaining that President Sun Sheng was currently on a flight back. I introduced Ning Xinan as my assistant, tasking her with auditing the company's current financial situation. Now, I just had to wait for the president to land. It was time to clean house at Yuguang Games. I stepped into the Yuguang Game building, keeping my identity a secret. I grabbed a basic employee card to blend in. My goal was simple. I wanted to inspect the development department and see the company's true state without any filtered reports. If people knew I was the boss, they would be on their best behavior. To find the truth, I had to be invisible. As I wandered through the department, I noticed hundreds of employees immersed in their work, but the atmosphere felt strained. Suddenly, the sound of a heated argument echoed from a nearby office, drawing my attention to a confrontation inside. A man named Fang Qiwen was pleading for his new martial arts project, convinced it would be a massive national hit. However, manager Xie Hua was dismissive. He told Fang he was getting too old and should leave new projects to others. Fang Qiwen didn't back down. He accused Xie Hua of embezzling project funds and manipulating younger staff for his own gain. I listened from the hallway, narrowing my eyes. It seemed Yuguang Game had deeper problems than I initially suspected. I wondered why Xie Hua felt so untouchable. Was he protected by someone higher up in the corporate ladder? I decided I had seen enough. I pushed open the office door and asked why a mere manager was being so arrogant. Xie Hua was stunned by my intrusion. He demanded to know who I was, his expression shifting from smug to angry. I didn't bother introducing myself. Instead, I called him out for using his power for personal gain and corrupting the company. I picked up the project proposal from his desk and scanned it. My eyes widened as I realized the game's potential. This project was a goldmine. If released with quality, it would easily become a hit in the current Chinese market. It disgusted me that Xie Hua was killing a brilliant project just to steal the research and development funds for himself. I slammed the proposal onto the table, shouting that his greed was costing the company a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I told him the company hired him to create value, not to treat the budget like his own personal piggy bank. Xie Hua glanced at my chest and saw the intern badge. He burst into laughter, mocking me for being a brave amateur. He compared me to some internet trend of young employees challenging presidents, telling me this company didn't tolerate such behavior. Fang Qiwen was moved by my support. He finally snapped and roared that the company was blind for hiring a moth like Xie. Feng revealed that Xie Hua was only in power because his brother-in-law was the vice president of operations. Driven by his passion for gaming, Fang Qiwen announced his resignation on the spot, refusing to work under such corruption. I felt a spark of respect for Fang. Even at 40, his passion for creating something great was still alive. Xie Hua sneered, threatening to sue Fang for leaking secrets if he tried to take the game project with him. I laughed at his confidence. I wanted to know if he really believed he could cover the sky with one hand. Xie Hua lost his patience and fired both of us immediately, threatening to have security drag us out of the building. Just then, my phone rang. It was President Sun Sheng, sounding incredibly respectful and apologizing for his late arrival. I answered coldly, telling him I was in the development office and that his manager was currently trying to fire me. There was a deadly silence on the other end. Sun Sheng realized his manager was firing the actual chairman of the company. I could practically hear the panic in his voice as he rushed back to the office to fix this disaster. I finished my phone call, but Xie Hua wasn't impressed. He sneered at me, thinking I was just some arrogant nobody. He tried to intimidate me by calling security, intending to have me dragged out of the office for making trouble. Fang Qiwen looked worried and urged me to leave, but I stayed. I wanted to see how far this guy would go. Just then, Sun Sheng rushed back into the room. He stopped the security guards instantly, his face pale with urgency. Xie Hua was confused, trying to play off the tension as a misunderstanding, but Sun Sheng was absolutely livid. Without hesitation, Sun Sheng ordered Xie Hua to pack his things and get out of Yuguang Games right now. Xie Hua tried to use his uncle, the vice president, as a shield, believing that family connection made him untouchable. I stepped in and calmly told him that if he was leaving, he should just take his uncle along with him. He started screaming at me, but Sun Sheng silenced him with a powerful slap that left him completely stunned. The truth finally came out. Sun Sheng revealed to everyone that I am the actual boss of the entire company. Fang Qiwen and Yang Feng were speechless. It was a complete shock that I had become the chairman overnight. I sat back and questioned Sun Sheng about the company's management. He was terrified, admitting he had failed in his duties. I decided that simple termination wasn't enough for Xie Hua. He had taken bribes and embezzled public funds. I warned him that I would sue him into oblivion. He wouldn't just be unemployed, he would be going to prison. As for his uncle, the vice president, I had him suspended immediately to undergo a thorough internal investigation. I then called an emergency meeting with all employees. The atmosphere was heavy with tension and nervous energy. Everyone was on edge, wondering what kind of person their new, mysterious chairman actually was. I addressed them clearly. I told them I have no patience for petty tricks or office politics in my company. I made the rules simple. This is a game company, and everything will be based on merit and strength. Then, I announced our new primary goal, focusing all our resources on the national-style martial arts survival game. I promoted Fang Qiwen to manager of game development and appointed Yang Feng as the deputy team leader. Their faces lit up with excitement. The reorganization was complete, and the real work was finally about to begin. After the meeting, I caught up with Ning Shinan. I was honestly impressed by how quickly she sorted everything out. She pointed out massive financial loopholes, proving Shiwawa and his uncle were corrupt. They were completely finished. I left the cleanup to Sun Shang. If he couldn't handle it perfectly, I wouldn't hesitate to let him go. Later, Yang Feng came to see me. He was beyond excited to find out I was actually the boss. I kept things professional but rewarded his loyalty by appointing him as a team leader. He was thrilled. Once I finally got some time to myself, I opened the system for my daily lottery draw. I couldn't believe my eyes. The reward was 56% shares of the Yida Group. I had just become the largest shareholder of a global giant covering finance, culture, and massive real estate. Yida Group is a world-class enterprise with annual profits exceeding 600 billion yuan. It was insane. I pulled the equity certificate from the system space. Just like that, the Yida Group belonged to me. I checked in on Yuguang Games and found that Sun Shang had efficiently dealt with the corruption scandal. With the internal mess cleared, the focus shifted back to developing our new game. Everything was on track. That evening, I joined Tang Luohuan for a banquet hosted by Zhao Minghong at the Boyo Hotel. Zhao Minghong was waiting anxiously at the entrance, his executives wondering who could be important enough for him to wait. When Tang Luohuan stepped out of the car, she looked like a bright moon, leaving everyone breathless. But the real shock came when Zhao Minghong rushed past her to greet me with extreme caution and respect. I told him we were friends now and to let the past go, which clearly relieved him immensely. Unbeknownst to us, someone was watching from a hotel room. A man named Qian Tianyi had spotted me. He was with Wang Siming, the arrogant prince of the Yida Group, who was bragging about his status. It was hilarious. Wang Siming had no idea that I now owned the very company he was so proud of. I found myself at the Platinum Hotel for a banquet hosted by Zhao Minghong. It was an absolute spectacle of luxury. The hall was filled with gourmet food and fine wine, creating an atmosphere similar to a massive corporate celebration. Next to me sat Tang Luohuan. She seemed to be sulking about last night, drinking glass after glass of red wine. When I tried to stop her from drinking too much, she lost her balance and tumbled right into my arms. Up close, her face was flushed and her eyes were hazy. The scent of red wine and her perfume were intoxicating. I couldn't help but think how stunning she looked in that moment. My throat felt dry as she whispered in my ear. She called me a big villain in a cute, slurred voice. I decided it was useless to argue with a drunk woman. She asked me about my relationship with Miss Su. I told her we were just friends, which seemed to surprise her. Satisfied with my answer, she drifted off to sleep in my arms. She looked so peaceful and cute while she was quiet. As the night wound down, Zhao Minghong took the stage to introduce Tang Luohuan as a brilliant young entrepreneur. I had to poke her waist to wake her up. She was mortified to realize everyone was staring at her. Just as she stood up to speak, a cold voice interrupted us. A man named Qian Ye had arrived. He looked at me with burning jealousy. He was clearly disgusted that Tang Luohuan was acting so close to another man. He shocked everyone by announcing that he was actually Tang Luohuan's fiancé, sparking a wave of gossip throughout the room. Tang Luohuan sneered, telling him she never agreed to the marriage and that it was nothing more than his own delusion. It turns out their families had a drunken agreement years ago. Tang Luohuan fought back, refusing to be a pawn in a marriage. Her grandmother gave her a 5-year agreement. If she could build her own wealth, the engagement would be officially void. She has been booming in business for 3 years now. Qian Tianyi knows his time to claim her is running out. He threatened to report her behavior to her family and Jia Cheng, trying to use shame to bring her back under control. Zhao Minghong stepped in to kick him out, but Qian Tianyi just laughed. He looked down on the Zhao group. He boasted about the power of the Jiangnan Qian family. Even Zhao Minghong seemed shaken by the mention of such a force. Zhao Minghong tried to intervene, but he returned from his phone call looking defeated and ashamed. Tang Luohuan dismissed him, insisting that this was a private matter that didn't concern anyone else. That was all the opening Qian Tianyi needed. He smirked and tried to forcibly grab her. Shen Qiulan quickly stepped in to protect her, but Qian Tianyi responded with a brutal slap to her face. The room went silent. Seeing the general manager of Orange Light Group attacked like that shocked everyone. Despite the blood on her lip, Shen Qiulan didn't flinch, warning him to think twice about his actions. Tang Luohuan was livid. Her eyes sharpened like knives as she told Qian Tianyi he was courting death. But Qian Tianyi wasn't afraid. He knew she couldn't use her family's power without breaking a 5-year agreement. Without the Tang family's backing, her small company was nothing compared to the massive influence of the Qian family. He laughed, claiming we were a perfect match and that she belonged to him regardless of her struggle. When she expressed her disgust, he turned his attention toward me, calling me a piece of trash. I'd stayed silent until then, but his insults were too much. I told him to kneel and apologize. He thought it was a joke and ordered his elite bodyguards to crush me right where I stood. The first man swung, but I caught his fist and twisted his arm until the bones snapped with a loud click. The other two rushed me, but within 10 seconds they were unconscious and bleeding on the floor. I sat back down calmly, without a single wrinkle in my clothes, asking why apologizing was so difficult. Still delusional, he threatened to make me bankrupt, believing his status made him untouchable in this society. I sighed, knowing he had wasted his last chance. I grabbed his neck and slammed him onto the marble table. Since he loved to use his mouth so much, I decided to give him a very special mouthwash. I forced 3 bottles of red wine down his throat, smashing his teeth and leaving him drenched in blood. I tossed him aside like garbage. The arrogant prince was now just a pathetic mess, retching on the floor. As he trembled in terror, I stepped on his hand and told him his life was worth less than a dog's. Just as he realized he had messed with a lunatic, a cold, stern voice rang out, commanding me to stop. Just as the tension peaked, a young man in casual clothes walked in, flanked by several imposing bodyguards. The hall erupted in chaos the moment people recognized him as Wang Ximing, the prince of the Yida group. Yida is a massive K-ball with interests across the country, and Wang Ximing is as famous as a superstar. Jiang Chen, looking pathetic with his broken teeth and blood-stained suit, immediately scrambled toward him for help. He played the victim perfectly, claiming I had brutally attacked him and his bodyguards without any provocation. Wang Ximing looked cold. Even if he didn't like Jiang Chen, he couldn't let this happen without a response. As the bodyguards moved to seize me, Tang Luohuan stepped forward, her voice firm and neither humble nor overbearing. She told Wang Ximing that this was a family matter and that Qian Tianyi deserved every bit of the beating. The air turned freezing as Wang Ximing lost his patience, warning her to get out of the way immediately. Despite the threat of the powerful Wang family, Luohuan refused to budge, determined to protect me at any cost. Then something shifted. Wang Ximing stopped and asked for my name, his voice sounding unexpectedly nervous. I walked over calmly. He quickly pulled out his phone, comparing my face to a photo in his album. Suddenly, Wang Ximing spun around and delivered a vicious slap that sent Qian Tianyi crashing back to the floor. The room went silent. He didn't stop there, kicking Qian Tianyi repeatedly for his sheer audacity. Then, the most powerful man in the room suddenly grabbed my hand with deep respect and admiration. He revealed the truth that left everyone breathless. I am the major shareholder of the entire Yida group. I own 56% of the company, making me the ultimate boss that Wang Ximing had been seeking. The shock on their faces was priceless, especially Qian Tianyi, who realized he had offended a billionaire. Wang Ximing apologized for his father's absence and invited me to a private room to discuss business. As we left, I noticed the bodyguards surrounding a terrified Qian Tianyi, ensuring he couldn't escape his fate. Tang Luohuan looked at me with a bittersweet smile, realizing that my true identity was far more complex than she imagined. I spent some time in a private room with Wang Ximing, who had come to Tianhai to gauge my intentions. He wanted to know if I planned to dismantle the Wang family legacy now that I held the power. By acquiring 56% of Yida Group, I had overnight become the largest shareholder with a controlling interest. To the Wangs, this was an astronomical amount of money and a terrifying display of influence. I made it clear that I wasn't interested in the daily grind of management, only the dividend payments. The truth is, I didn't plan this takeover. I simply won the shares through one of my daily lucky draws. Wang Ximing was relieved and we quickly hit it off, with him insisting on treating me as his older brother. When we returned to the banquet hall, Zhao Minghong immediately approached me, head bowed in deep apology. He had sided with the wrong person, but I told him not to worry about it. Then came Qian Tianyi, dragged in by bodyguards and looking completely broken. Realizing he had offended the boss of Yida Group, he begged for my forgiveness like a coward. I didn't need his apology, but I knew someone else who still had a bone to pick with him. I called Tang Luohuan over and she didn't hold back, delivering a series of stinging slaps to his face. With the threat of my influence behind her, Qian Tianyi dared not resist or ever mention that forced marriage again. As the night wound down, Shen Qiyulin drove us home in the Bentley, with Luohuan sitting beside me. She leaned on my shoulder, her voice soft and filled with a vulnerability I had not seen before. She confessed that for 3 years she had pushed herself to the limit to fulfill a grueling 5-year agreement. She had stayed away from her family just to keep her resolve from breaking under the pressure. Now that it was over, she felt she could finally breathe and live for herself again. Suddenly, she leaned in and kissed me, a shy but determined move that caught me completely off guard. I didn't let her pull away easily, pulling her close for a passionate moment that left us both breathless. We shared some playful banter about revenge, while Shen Qiolin watched us through the rearview mirror. She joked about being an old driver, though it was clear she was feeling a bit envious of our intimacy. I walked home with Tang Luowan, the night air feeling light. I could tell a huge burden had finally been lifted from her. I told her not to worry about the Qian family anymore. If they dared to stir up trouble, I would handle everything. The look in her eyes was so tender it made my heart skip. She was clearly starting to see me differently. I couldn't help but tease her, asking for another kiss. She blushed and told me no, but she was smiling. Suddenly, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed me. I wrapped my arms around her waist, losing myself in the moment. I joked that her kissing skills needed some work, leaving her flustered and embarrassed as I waved goodbye and headed home. Once home, I saw a message from Xiaoxi. She was cute as always, inviting me out for a lunch date. As I relaxed, I thought about the women in my life. Luo Huan, Jingyi, Xiaoxi, and my butler were all stunning. Choosing between such incredible women felt impossible. I decided to just let nature take its course and enjoy the ride. The next morning, I started my day with the system lottery. 3 draws were waiting for me, and I did not hesitate. I gained God-level piano skills instantly. In seconds, I possessed a musical mastery that surpassed the greatest pianists in human history. But the real shock was the 5 times consumption rebate card. Anything I spent would be returned 5-fold, up to 50 billion. With 20 billion already in my account, this was the perfect opportunity to grow my wealth even further in 3 days. I dressed in a custom Armani suit and a Patek Philippe watch, then drove my Pagani to pick up Xiaoxi. She looked absolutely ethereal in a white tulle skirt. Every head on the street turned as she waited for me. The moment she saw my car, her anxiety vanished. She hopped in, looking radiant and excited for our afternoon together. She had picked Zixing Pavilion, the most expensive Michelin 3-star restaurant in the city. She really wanted to treat me well. I wanted to treat Xiaoxi to a nice lunch at the Zixing Pavilion, but the reservation process was a nightmare. The receptionist was polite on the surface, but I could hear the condescension in her voice over the phone. She told us they were full for 10 days and that no amount of status could get us a table. I am not used to being told no, so I took the phone from Xiaoxi to handle this myself. I told the girl to put her boss on the line or he would miss out on a $1 million feast. That got her attention. She quickly connected me to Dean, a world-class French chef who ran the establishment. Dean was arrogant, claiming his cooking was a sacred moment and that his principles were not for sale. He lectured me about professionalism and rules, thinking his ideals were stronger than my bank account. I decided to test just how hard those bones were. I offered him 500 million yuan for the restaurant. He was stunned, but I did not stop there. I upped the offer to 1 billion yuan on the spot. Silence followed. It seems 1 billion yuan is a very effective hammer for smashing someone's moral principles. The moment I pretended to hang up, Dean's pride vanished and he practically begged me to buy the place. Just like that, the proud chef became a loyal employee, eager to please his new boss with the finest food. Most people would see this as a waste, but with my rebate card, I am actually making a massive profit. By spending this money, I am setting myself up for a rebate that far exceeds the cost of the restaurant. Xiaoxi looked at me with such emotion, feeling guilty that I spent 1 billion just for her lunch. I told her it was just a small investment, though seeing her touched made the whole thing worth it. She leaned into me, her heart warming up as we shared a quiet, intimate moment together. I asked about Cece, and Xiaoxi shyly admitted she wanted this time to be just for the 2 of us. I could not help but smile and rub her forehead, feeling the connection between us grow stronger. I stepped on the gas of my Pagani Fengshan, leaving a trail of envious onlookers in our wake. To them, I was just another local tyrant, but for me, this was just the beginning of the journey. I led Xiaoxi toward the entrance of the exclusive Purple Star Pavilion restaurant at the Bund in Tianhai City. At the door, an arrogant man with gold teeth tried to block our way, claiming the restaurant was full. He even had the nerve to try and flirt with Xiaoxi, suggesting she stay while I go home. Xiaoxi shut him down with a cold, indifferent voice, but the man simply thought she was playing hard to get. Suddenly, the classical doors opened and a line of waiters emerged. The man thought they were there to serve him. Instead, the staff pushed him aside like an outsider as Dean and the beautiful Elise stepped forward to greet us. They bowed deeply in unison, their voices echoing as they welcomed me as the boss of the establishment. I could see the absolute terror in the man's eyes as he realized he had just insulted a powerhouse. I didn't let him bother me. People like that are too insignificant to merit my anger or my attention. As we walked inside, I noticed his companion looking at me with an expression of sudden, intense interest. The interior of the pavilion was breathtaking, combining French classical luxury with modern high-tech photon screens and art. After signing the final papers in the office, I officially became the owner of Zixing Pavilion, adding 50 billion to my account. Elise, the stunning deputy manager, personally served us, ensuring every detail of our evening was absolutely perfect. We started with a rare Compalibit wine, a bitter essence designed to awaken the taste buds for the meal. Then came the appetizers, including a golden phoenix cupcake adorned with real gold leaf and the finest chocolate. Around us, other wealthy guests were whispering in shock. They had never seen such an extravagant order. From white truffles to golden caviar and Kobe beef, the feast continued, costing nearly 1,000,000 yuan in total. The other men in the room felt their pride shatter as they realized just how small their wealth was. Even worse for them, their girlfriends could not stop staring at me with pure admiration and longing. It was a night of absolute luxury, and for the first time, the elite of Tianhai felt truly outclassed. The French dinner was elegant, though the portions were pitifully small. Still, the wine and food were quite satisfying. As I looked around the room, I spotted a magnificent classical piano. A little music would perfect this leisurely evening. Chao Shi looked at me with surprise, wondering if I could actually play. I just smiled and took my seat. This was no ordinary instrument. It was an aristocratic relic worth millions. But the instrument does not make the musician. Thanks to my god-level skill, my proficiency was twice the human extreme. I had surpassed every master in history. As I prepared to play, I noticed some jealous glances. One music teacher even sneered, expecting me to fail. He likely wanted to humble me in front of the women. I didn't mind. I simply let my fingers fly. I chose the Croatian Rhapsody. The moment I started, the room fell silent. The melody was precise and powerful. I could feel the emotions flowing. One moment, it was a gentle breeze. The next, a crashing storm of passion. That music teacher stood up in shock. He realized I wasn't just a hobbyist, but a super master of the era. The women in the room were completely mesmerized. To them, I had suddenly become the ultimate Prince Charming. The contrast was brutal for the other men. One girl even snapped at her boyfriend, calling him completely unworthy. Poor Kai Shaokun was devastated. He realized that in the face of such perfection, he stood no chance at all. As the final note echoed through the restaurant, the room erupted in applause. Even my harshest critic was now a fan. Chao Shi was beaming with admiration. I played it off coolly, claiming I had only practiced a little bit. Elise, too, seemed captivated by the romance of it all. She walked us to the car with a longing look. It was finally time to leave. Chao Shi was quite tipsy, her face flushed like a ripe, beautiful peach. As we headed back to Star River Bay, she leaned close to me, whispering that she didn't want to be alone.